Okay. So now we have another opportunity to see what Shantideva has to say to our ego, to our self-centeredness. And if you haven't noticed already, self-centeredness fights back. And it often has a fit, or what do we call a temper tantrum? Okay. So we know whenever our mind is having a temper tantrum, the self-centered mind is lying behind it. Yeah, but self-centered mind is very sneaky. It doesn't say, I'm behind the temper tantrum. It puts up a sign that says, this is the truth. Yeah. And then it has the temper tantrum. Yeah. And it's presented to us as the truth, factual, objective, impartial. And you better believe it. Yeah. Because if you don't believe the temper tantrum of the self-centeredness, you're going to fall apart. You're just going to sit there and disintegrate on your chair. Yeah. Nothing will remain of you except your self-centered thought. It won't go away. Yeah. Self-grasping ignorance. And, and it makes up such good stories. Yeah. Incredible stories. We should write down some of the stories our self-centered thought makes up, because it weaves things. So coincidentally, whatever happens, we are the innocent, good-willed party. Yeah. And the rest of the world is prejudice against us. And so it's me against the world, self-centered thought says, doesn't it? And I've got to win this battle. Because self-centered thought, what does it do? It pretends to be our best friend. Doesn't it? Yeah. And it says, if I don't take care of you, who will take care of you? You've got to take care of yourself first. Yes, that makes sense. I will take care of myself first, which means I need to have everything I want. Yeah. So take care of myself does not mean keeping a virtuous mind and creating good karma so I don't create more causes of suffering. That is not considered taking care of myself. What's taking care of myself is getting what I want right now. Yeah. And self-centered thought puts forth all these fantastic arguments about how it's right, and all the downfalls of not following its command. Yeah. And if it commands us to create non-virtue, aye, sir. Am I doing that right? Yeah. I've got to do it. I've got to follow self-centered thought immediately, and not listen to that little voice in the back of my head that is the memory of Dharma teachings. Because that little voice says, anger is a defilement. Yeah, greed is keeping you away from awakening. Cause and effect exists. You better look out what you do, because you're responsible. Shut up. I want my ice cream. Shut up. But that little voice just, it keeps coming back, and we keep going like this. Yeah. And then when we wind up in a mess in this life, then do we put the fault on the self-centered thought? No. We say the world's unfair to me. World doesn't understand me. Yeah. Self-centered thought was right. I should have taken care of myself first. But we don't investigate and see, I did take care of myself first. And that's why I'm in this mess. Yeah. So, So it's very important in our practice to see the self-centered thought as the enemy. And that's what Shantideva keeps telling us over and over and over again. Yeah. And we keep saying, not really. But if we have an outlook on life that thinks about karma and cause and effect, then we can see the disadvantages of self-centeredness. If our outlook on life is just thinking about this life's happiness, then self-centeredness is, we want it to be president of the corporation. And it happily takes on the job. Yeah. So this is why I think, really developing a Buddhist worldview is important, because it helps you discern the different thoughts in your mind and which ones have to do with karma and creating virtue and abandoning non-virtue, and which voices have to do with pleasing myself at all costs. Okay, and Shantideva doesn't pull any punches. He tells us right exactly to our face. And he writes it in such a way like he's talking to himself. Because if he said, so just to give you, I'm picking a verse, when talking, I should speak from my heart on what is relevant. So he talks about himself. He says, I should speak from my heart on what is relevant. So we'll listen to that. Yes, Shantideva, you should speak according to your heart about what is relevant. But if Shantideva said, you should speak from your heart on what is relevant, we'd go, well, I already am. Why are you telling me what to do? Yeah? Would you react like that if there's a you in it? If Shantideva were giving us instructions? Who are you? You lived all these centuries ago in India. You don't know anything about modern Western society. It's changed. Yeah. I don't have to speak from my heart about what is relevant because nobody else does. Yeah. And I want to get along with sentient beings, so if I speak garbage, they'll like me. And I'll get along with them, and I'll have a good relationship with them. Then I can talk about Dharma with them. Yeah, while we're drinking a beer. Okay. So we need to, because he talks about himself, maybe we listen a little bit. Not too much. But we need, when we read these verses, when I says, we should think this I, and we should say to ourselves, I should speak from my heart about what is relevant. And then check up, do I? Yeah. Do I speak about what is relevant? Well, there's a big sale at Macy's. They have robes there. Yeah. Maroon, good color maroon, nice quality cloth. We should all go to Macy's. I heard Saks Fifth Avenue is going to stock it too. Maybe we can all go there. I don't know which one has the sale. And they put, I won't say this. And the model on the front cover of Vogue, modeling the robes, was our dear friend Marjorie Taylor Greene.
That would be a day to rejoice.
Well, that would what?
Be a day to rejoice.
Yeah. So, so this is why I really think we have to spend some time getting the Buddhist worldview. Yeah. Otherwise, it's too easy to just mouth the rest of the teachings, but not really apply them. Let's cultivate our motivation. So when we have a Buddhist worldview, we think long term. We don't just think about right now and what's good right now. We think about future lives, later this life, and very expansively about how our actions will influence other living beings. So this is a very different perspective and than is usually held in the world, where the emphasis is on immediate happiness and on oneself, benefiting oneself. So when we look at making decisions and we think about different events, we think long term. And that involves thinking about karma and its effects, our actions, and the results of our actions. And since we want happiness for ourselves, we want to abandon non-virtue and create virtue. And if that sometimes means giving up a little bit of pleasure, we're okay with doing that. And it also involves thinking of all sentient beings and how can we actualize full awakening to be of benefit to them rather than keeping on spinning in samsara, which does not benefit ourselves or other living beings. So here we see that awareness of karma and its effects is very important for living a sane life. And compassion for self and other living beings is also very important. So when we think of the benefits of compassion, it becomes easier to generate compassion ourselves. And when we think of the kindness of others, it also helps us to generate compassion. And when there's compassion in our hearts, there's a certain softness in our hearts, as well as a certain kind of strength and a certain kind of compassion, a certain kind of self-confidence when we have real compassion. So generate that compassion and the bodhicitta that arises from it, and have the aspiration to attain full awakening, to benefit others, and see listening to teachings this morning as a step in that direction. So sometimes we hear certain bits of news, or, we hear different information, and our mind gets tight, the mind gets angry. We form an immediate opinion about what is going on and want to immediately act to stop what's ever going on. And we need to slow down a bit, and investigate things. And what actually happened in this incident? And not just listen to one person's account, but other people's account. Check what we've heard. Have compassion for everybody involved. And not feel like we have to rush to form an opinion and correct what's ever happening. Because in samsara, there is something always happening. And if we spend our whole life chasing these situations, without using much wisdom, then we won't have much time for practice. So we need to make sure we have the time for practice, to contemplate ourselves. And then slowly, when we investigate different situations, then we can see them as part of our practice. We're going to put into action what we have meditated on. And then it's much easier for a good result to come. So we're still on chapter 5, guarding alertness, talking about ethical conduct. And you can see that in the whole discussion of ethical conduct, Shantideva keeps hitting at the self-centered thought. He doesn't necessarily say it directly, that the self-centered thought is the enemy, that he saves that. Well, he does, in certain ways, but he really saves the scathing talk about self-centeredness for chapter 8. But it becomes readily apparent that to keep ethical conduct, we have to do something with our own self-centered mind that creates a crisis out of almost anything. So that we always live in crisis. That's kind of how the world is working today, you know. The news always has to have a crisis. Yeah. Films, there's always a crisis. Our lives, there's always a crisis. So, yeah, samsara is filled with crises, but let's not approach them with a mind that's in crisis. Okay, let's approach them with a mind that has compassion, with a mind that is seeking truth, not jumping to conclusions. Okay, so we're on verse 79, which happens to be the one that I used as the example that I randomly picked out. Okay. But to just review, you know, when we start verse 77, all deeds of others are the source of a joy that would be rare even if it could be bought with money. So there it's referring to people's virtuous deeds and learning to rejoice in others' virtue. So at the end of the day, even if we're tired, even if we mess things up during the day, if we take a few minutes to rejoice in the virtue of others and rejoice in the virtues of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, that will uplift our spirits before we go to bed. Which is important, because if you go to bed feeling down, you're going to wake up feeling downer. Yeah. And then in 78, he says, you know, rejoicing in the virtue of others is no loss for me. And in fact, it actually benefits me now by creating a happy mind. And when we rejoice in others' virtues, we create merit, okay, which ripens in our own good circumstances. And if we're jealous of others' virtue and criticize them and compete with them and try and depreciate whatever they did because we want to be better, then or not be better, think we're better. Yeah, being better and thinking we're better are two different things. Yeah, then we wind up experiencing great suffering. And then 79 says, is giving, now there's a whole series of verses directing us in very simple actions in our daily life, how to feel and think and speak. So when talking, I should speak from my heart on what is relevant, making the meaning clear and the speech pleasing. I should not speak out of desire or hatred, but in gentle tones and in moderation. Whoa, that's a lot to do, isn't it? And you think how easy it is to do the opposite. I should speak, well, first of all, from my heart. Yeah, how often do we really speak from our heart? And how often do we just pass on rumors that we've heard? Yeah, or speak with some kind of ulterior motivation. And to speak about what is relevant, you know, not about high-flung conspiracy theories that take people away from what's really going on, you know. Like, will Trump reassume the presidency on August 2nd, or will it be August 22nd? You know, and then tracing all the signals that you pick up on the internet. Yeah, because there's this whole thing now that he's going to be reinstated as the president because the election was false. And, you know, so Q is churning, the Q people are churning a lot about that. So, to talk about what's relevant and not spread rumors or false ideas. Or if we heard something that sounds suspicious, to report it to somebody who can do something about it and just say, I heard this. I don't know if it's fact, but it's worth investigating, and say it like that instead of, did you know that, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, we repeat something somebody else told us, which is something somebody else told them, and we're back playing that game of telephone like we did in 3rd grade. Yeah, remember that game? Yeah, it's a good game. We should, do that every year to remind ourselves that everything other people say is not necessarily true. Okay? And that people may say things that are false without the intention to lie. Yeah. But just because what they heard was not true, and then we're not quite sure what we heard. So, and then we want to tell a good story. So we kind of embellish it a little bit. Yeah, and pretty soon, the Martians are landing on the landing there. That's why Harold created the landing. No, seriously, because he thought there might be extraterrestrial beings who someday may need a place to land. And the Navy is seeing all sorts of things in the sky that they can't explain. And so, there's a lot of talk now about that. And just think, we could be the center of it. Yeah. And then we could teach all the Martians the Dharma. Yeah. But we have to learn how to speak Martian first. Okay. Who's going to volunteer to do that? So, oh, thank you. Good. So you can learn it first and then teach it to the rest of us. Okay? So, talk about what is relevant. Make the meaning clear. So use vocabulary that the other person understands. Use phrases that the other person will understand. We may want to sound very astute and erudite, and then speak with a certain kind of language that makes us seem really astute and erudite, but nobody understands what in the world we're talking about. Okay? So we should speak with, in a way that makes the meaning clear, and also the speech pleasing. So not insulting other people who disagree. Okay. Now somebody's going to say, well, what about in the scriptures from these great beings? They look at and say, how could somebody believe that stupid theory? And then they give an explanation that one paragraph is a whole page long, and you can't understand what in the world they're talking about because they're using highfalutin language. Yeah, somebody could ask that question, couldn't they? Yeah, you pick up one of Jeffrey's things and it's like, Jamyang Shepa said this. What in the world does it mean? Okay. So I don't think Jamyang Shepa is trying to sound like, a big shot in there. But, if we're giving a talk about that topic, yeah, and the audience is not an erudite audience, or is not an audience of practitioners, then we use simpler language so they could understand. And we see, first of all, if they're ready to speak about that topic. Because we have Bodhisattva vows not to explain emptiness to people who are beginners. Why? Because they could misunderstand it and fall to nihilism. Yeah. So we want to make the meaning clear and the speech pleasing, but we have to talk about what is relevant to a specific person. Okay. So I often, for example, when I'm asked to talk, give a general talk about emptiness to an audience, and I have no idea who's in it. And, it's at a Dharma center, and you can get baby beginners coming in. Then, as the example of emptiness, I talk about manners and etiquette and how they differ from one country, one culture to the next, and how those are created by our mind, how we concretize them, how we judge other people by them. But they're actually, things that a particular culture made up. And I give the example of applauding, which in Tibetan culture means you're scaring away ghosts, but in Western culture means you approve of what somebody's doing. Okay, and I use the example of sticking out your tongue, which in Tibetan culture is showing others that you're trustworthy because you're not reciting mantras and black magic spells. But in the West is considered very rude to stick out your tongue at other people. So I think that's a good example just to get people thinking about how things are created by concept and by society and so on, but we shouldn't grasp them as having inherent meaning in and of themselves. Okay? So just giving you some tips if you come across this. One time, this was when was it? In the 70s. So I had heard some teachings, of course, about emptiness here and there. And I went to see Kyabche Sangha Rinpoche when he was in Dharamsala. And I had my notebook, and I was going to ask him all these questions about emptiness, because I thought emptiness was really cool. And, and I thought, I'm going to ask him these questions and find out. And I asked my questions, and he looked at me. He was the previous Sangha Rinpoche was very solemn. He had a goatee, and his eyes, there was nobody home, He had some realization. Anyway, he looks at me and he says, if I answered your questions, you wouldn't understand a thing I was saying. And then he proceeded to talk about emptiness. Okay? But I don't know why I told you that story, but anyway, whatever you get out of it. Yeah, I still don't know if I understood what he said. Okay, I should not speak out of desire or hatred, but in gentle tones and in moderation. What happens when we speak about desire, out of desire, motivated by greed, motivated by wanting? I want this, I need this, it has to happen in this way. Yeah, we come across as bossy, we come across as demanding. Okay, when we come across that way, because we are being that way, then are people likely to go along with us? Some people may do it out of fear, and some people may tell us where to go. Okay, but it doesn't foster communication. What happens when we speak out of hatred? When we insult people, we criticize them, we diminish and denigrate them so that they will do what we want and give us what we want. Again, we create bad feelings. We may frighten somebody into submission, but they aren't going to like us, and it's going to be the wheel of sharp weapons returning upon us in some day. And we just create bad feelings. Okay? But speak in gentle tones and in moderation. So there are times when we have to speak quite directly. When somebody is doing something harmful, or in cases where we see quite obvious discrimination against certain people, well, we have to call it out. But there's different ways of calling things out. Yeah. And there's ways of calling it out where we yell and scream and make a scene and da-da-da-da-da. And ways where we say something, to the person right then and there. But the words are gentle words, but the look on our face and the voice we're using is penetrating. Okay. And then to speak in moderation, to not just go on and on and on, assuming that the entire world wants to hear about my problems. On and on. Have you ever met people who go on and on about their stuff? And they repeat themselves, and every time you see them, it's the same story. Okay, so let's not us be one of those people. Speak in gentle tones and in moderation. So I want to give you an example of, calling something out. So one time I had, I forget where I was, someplace in the Midwest. And, I do prison work. And so there had been a group of people, the Dharma students there that did prison work. They took me to a prison, and it was in a maximum unit. So I went into the maximum unit and gave a Dharma talk and came out. And, one of the guys from the group was kind of escorting me. There were several of us who had gone in. And we started talking about one of the inmates there. And he said, that guy was, he was really badly sexually abused when he was young. And when a man is sexually abused, it's much worse than when women are. Yeah, because to me, that implies that women get sexually abused all the time, and it's okay. It's just more, on men, it has a much worse impact. And women, it's okay. Well, right then and there in the parking lot of the prison, I said, you can't say that. You don't know that, when women are sexually abused. It's very serious. It's very traumatic. You can't say that it's worse for men than it is for women, and I called him out right then and there. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but there was a certain feeling about his response, because I came out, I was pretty strong in what I said, but I got a feeling that maybe he had been sexually abused as a kid. Yeah. And so I was wondering, by my calling him out, did he feel that it was dissing him and discounting his experience, which I wouldn't have wanted to do. But I also didn't want to let what he said go without a reply, because what he said was incorrect. Yeah. So these kinds of things, I still don't know until that day what was happening with him. But these kind of things happen in life where sometimes you're not sure. You do something with a good motivation. And, before I said it, I didn't have that feeling about him at all. It was after I said it, something about his demeanor. Yeah, so these things happen and you don't know. And you try and learn from your experience. But it was a difficult situation because I felt like I really needed to say something. I couldn't, even if he, as a child, had been abused, I still needed to say something when he made a comparison like that. Okay. I'm telling too many stories today. Okay, verse 80. When beholding someone with my eyes, thinking I shall fully awaken through depending upon this being, I should look at that person with love and an open heart. So this is when we talk about metta or loving kindness, this is the real meaning of metta, that our MO towards any living being is one of love and an open heart and wishing them well. And here in this verse, we're not just having ordinary metta, a goodwill towards somebody right now, but we're really generating bodhicitta and saying, based on that love for others, then I will attain full awakening in order to really be able to benefit that person. Because right now I'm sitting here generating metta towards them. Maybe they pick up the energy of it, but if I really want to help somebody, I have to be more capable myself. Yeah. So this is a very interesting thing to do when you're sitting in a traffic jam on the highway, to look at the other people in the cars and instead of seeing them as competitors for the next 4 feet in front of you, to see them as people, who have feelings, who are trying to get somewhere just like you are, to wish them well. And then to take the further step and say, my awakening depends on them. Okay. And to think that our awakening depends on every single living being. We can't omit even one of them. If we omit one sentient being because we can't stand them, then we cannot attain full awakening. Because we can't have bodhicitta if we omit anybody. So that means all the mosquitoes in the forest. Yeah. It means all the people who lie, the public officials who lie. It means, all of the bugs, including the ticks. Can you look at a tick? Can you look at how do you say it? Cicada? Cicada. Yeah. Can you look at a cicada and think, my awakening depends on that? Can you look at a killer hornet, and say, my awakening depends on that sentient being? And think that consciousness born in the body of the tick or the mosquito or the killer hornet is a consciousness that has the Buddha nature. And that person, that exists by being merely designated, is not going to be, that bug forever and ever. This is just a temporary karmic appearance. Yeah. And that when we can meet them in a different circumstance and have a different kind of relationship with them. So now the mama turkeys, they're bringing their babies into the garden. The babies are really tiny now, aren't they? Have you seen? They're itty bitty chickies. And they're so cute, much cuter than when they grow up and poop right in front of where you're walking. Okay? But we've got to have compassion for them no matter where they poop. And the peacock that attacked us. Yeah. Have compassion for that peacock. It's not always going to be a peacock. And, so really use these kind of situations where we encounter so many different kinds of people. When you're traveling and, at an airport and people are pushing and shoving and, or you're at a long life initiation and they're not just pushing and shoving, they're trampling you. Yeah. And just think, based on these living beings, I will awaken. Okay, and look at them with love and an open heart. So I wonder, when we have demonstrations and protests and things turn violent, what would happen if you were in a situation where there was the time to actually stop and look at somebody like that so that they could take it in? Sometimes things are happening too fast. Somebody can't take it in. But sometimes in those situations, looking at somebody like that can have an effect.
I heard that in Hamburg while I still was living in Hamburg in one of those teachings I received there. And the teacher was sharing a story that happened to a woman. She attended a talk by him. And she said she was stationed as a sanitizer, sanitary, how you call that? Something like an emergency person in the health department in Iraq. And they got a message, a phone call that there is a person who has bombs on her body and on a market, fully alive market. And so this person was a metta practitioner. So her main focus was metta meditation, and they practice it in their little group. And so she went ahead and went close to that market, and she, as she said, practiced metta. And so this person saw her, and this person gave up on the plan to
set off
the bombs. So, yeah.
Mm. Did they capture the person?
Yeah.
Okay. Then verse 81, always being motivated by great aspiration or being motivated by the remedial forces. If I work in the fields of excellence, benefit, and misery, great virtue will come about. Okay? So, being motivated by the great aspiration of bodhicitta. Yeah, so either having that motivation or motivated by the remedial forces, the four opponent powers of regret, restoring the relationship, some remedial action, and a determination not to do it again. Yeah, so with either of those, one is on the side to benefit, the other is on the side of repairing damage. Okay. Then if I work in the fields of excellence, benefit, and misery, the field of excellence refers to the holy beings, okay, our spiritual mentor and the holy beings. And the karma we create with them is very powerful because of their qualities. The field of benefit, refers to our parents and people who have directly benefited us, because of the direct benefit that we've received from them. They too are a powerful field with which we create karma. And the field of misery is those who are ill or impoverished or suffering in some way or another. Okay? And so clearly, they are in need as well. So these three fields, the karma we create with these people, if it's virtuous, is much stronger. If it's non-virtuous, it's also much stronger. Okay? But here he's saying, if we're motivated by the great aspiration of bodhicitta or by the four pona powers, and then we work with the people of these three fields, then we create great merit. Okay? That doesn't mean ignoring everybody else. It doesn't. Some people take it as, oh, well, I'm going to give an offering, so I'm going to give it to this person because I get more merit, but I'm not going to give it to that one because they're not so important. Okay, and that this happens very much around, you create so much merit giving to the three jewels, but, just some Joe Blow, just sitting on the street. We don't need to do anything for him. And yes, last night in the talk that I was giving to East West bookstore, I was reading a passage from the Avatamsaka Sutra, where it was talking about how when we please sentient beings, we are pleasing the Buddha. When we benefit sentient beings, we're doing the work of the Buddha. So to not just be partial and think, I only do things directly for the holy beings and, give them all sorts of this and that. But to realize, the holy beings became that way because of their bodhicitta, which depends on sentient beings, and that they care about sentient beings more than themselves. So if you take care of sentient beings and serve sentient beings, you're serving your spiritual mentor, you're serving the three jewels. Okay. Yeah?
So if we benefit a sentient being that's not one of our parents of this life with the awareness that they've been our kind mother in past lives, does that put them into the field of benefit then, if we do that with that thought?
That's a question you have to ask the Buddha. Okay, I don't know the answer to that, but I do practice that. Especially when talking about the Dharma, because my family wasn't at all interested in the Dharma, so I rejoice that I can teach other people's parents. Even though I can't teach my own. So I don't know if that, creates more merit or not. I'm not tabulating the merit. I just know that it's a very good mind to have, and it makes me very happy to think like that. These questions about karma are beyond my pay grade. Okay. Okay, then, verse 82. Endowed with wisdom and joy, I should undertake all that I intend to do. I need not depend upon anyone else in any actions that I undertake. When we are working in our lives, no matter what we're doing, to have wisdom and be able to make good decisions, and joy, so joy that can look at sentient beings with love and feel connected with them and feel happy to be of service with them. Yeah, so really check our minds when we're doing different activities and talking with people. Are we doing them with wisdom and joy, or are we doing them with stupidity out of obligation and resentment? And why do I have to do this? Yeah, our old theme song, it's not fair. It's not fair if you make me vacuum this floor and it's not my turn on the rota. I am going to be miserable and let you know how unhappy I am because it's not fair. And we're vacuuming the floor. Yeah, the floor gets vacuumed. And we're miserable, and we want to retaliate against whoever made the rota and put us on the rota again for vacuuming the floor when it's not our turn. Yeah? And we've given up a whole opportunity to be joyful and to do something with a good motivation, that benefits other people, and doesn't take that long, and to have a happy mind doing it. Instead, what we're doing, our attitude is making us miserable. Yeah, okay, you're forcing me to cut the carrots this way. I'll do what you want. Yeah. Who are we trying to impress? Yeah? What are we doing? We come to class, and may I attain awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. But I'm not going to cut the carrots to benefit this one sentient being. Or I will cut the carrots, but not the way they want them to. Yeah? Do you see how foolish we are sometimes? Here's a great opportunity to have a happy mind and to do something useful for somebody else. And we turn it into, a disaster. Like the worst thing in the world is happening. And who is the one making us miserable? Yeah, we point the finger, that person in the kitchen who's bossing me around. They're the one making me miserable. Really? You don't have any choice about how you feel and how you act? You're completely a puppet, and the puppet strings are attached to that other person? So you don't have any choice about what attitude you have? Really? Yeah, we need to ask ourselves that question. No, I don't have any choice because they always pick on me again and again and again and again. Those people are so nice to live with, aren't they? Aren't they? Don't you just love being around people that complain all the time and criticize all the time? Yeah. If you're a bodhisattva, you love being around them because they're your field of practice and they help you practice patience. Yeah, and fortitude. So don't go around, that person's complaining and criticizing. Then if you look at that person and say, why do they always have such a negative attitude and they're always complaining and they always say the same thing when they complain? And haven't they listened to these Dharma teachings? Why don't they try and be happy and at least see that other people care about them? They can try and create merit, but they're too stupid. Then who's the one who's criticizing and complaining and giving up an opportunity to feel joyful? Yeah, then it becomes us. Okay? So there's plenty of opportunities to feel miserable. You could be the person who starts the misery chain. Remember those letters we used to get when we were young? Yeah, chain letters that everybody sends $10 to the first person on the list, and then you have to send the money to 10, or no, you have to send the letter to 10 more people. They didn't do that in Australia? Oh, it's an excellent way to make money. Except I never did those things. I just threw the letter away. But, Chainmail, yeah. Yeah. So now it becomes chain suffering. You started it off. Yeah. You're unhappy about something. And then I'm like mad because you're always complaining. So I complain about you because you're complaining about that person in the kitchen. And it's anyway, all the fault of the carrots, you know. The carrots are sabotaging the world. And so that person's unhappy. Then I'm unhappy. Then I go to somebody else and I complain. Do you know what this person, we do so much to benefit them, blah, blah, blah. And all they do is complain and I'm sick of dealing with them, and I tell you, and then, you get tired of me complaining to you about that person who's complaining about that person. And we all actually have the opportunity to be joyful. And we've completely given it up. Okay. So endowed with wisdom and joy, I should undertake all that I intend to do. Okay. So really try and put that in practice instead of going back to the default method of criticism and complaint. Then I need not depend upon anyone else in any actions that I undertake. Now, we have to understand this correctly. Yeah. It does not mean that when you need help, you don't ask for help. Okay. Yeah. So, you're on top of a 10-foot ladder and you need somebody to hold the ladder, firm. But, you think, I don't need to depend upon anybody else, and then you fall off the ladder because the ladder wasn't being held, So when you need help, we have to ask for help. Nothing wrong with asking for help. But what this is referring to, I think, how I read it, is when we see things clearly, and we know that what we're doing is coming from a good place in ourselves, we don't need to run around and look for everybody's approval before we do it. Okay? So you want to come to the Abbey for a retreat? Do you really need to ask your coworkers what they think, and ask your family what they think, and ask everybody else, tell them all your plans and seek their approval because we can't make our own decision? Yeah, that's not being an efficacious adult, Here, it's if you need help, you ask for help. But we don't need everybody to give their stamp of approval. Because then it gets, as Lama Yeshe said, then they're going to ask me where to go pee-pee. Yeah. Shall I do this? Shall I do that? Will you help me with this? Will you help me with that? Yeah. Okay. So there we should learn how to think things through and make competent decisions. And if we need help and we need information before making this decision, then to ask. Okay, then verse 83, the perfections such as generosity are progressively more exalted. But for a little morality, I should not forsake a great gift. Principally, I should consider what will be of the most benefit for others. So when we look at the 6 or 10 perfections, each subsequent one is more exalted in the sense that it may be more difficult to practice or more meritorious to practice. Yeah. So generosity is considered the easiest because everybody, even people who aren't religious at all, like generosity. The whole world respects generosity. Okay. The whole world doesn't practice it, but the whole world respects it. Okay. Then ethical conduct. So generosity becomes the easiest. Ethical conduct is a little bit more difficult because it involves restraining our negative actions. Yeah. Then fortitude is more difficult than that because we have to restrain not just our body and speech, but really transform the mind. And so on like that. That's what it means by the perfections are progressively more exalted. But here, Shantideva is giving an example where you're faced with a situation where you could do a very big act of generosity or a very small act of ethical conduct. Okay, so what would be a good example of that? Okay, so you want to, let's say, you want to make a big offering to a charity or to a temple or monastery or something, and you go in to make the offering. You're a monastic, let's say, or now that's not such a good example. Anyway, yeah, you can think about possible examples. You know, it might be a small action of morality or a small precept that you're keeping. Yeah, but if you keep that precept exactly, you're giving up the opportunity to give a big gift or to do something that allows somebody else to create a lot of merit. Okay, and so it's saying here that even though, it's said that as we progress up the ladder of the perfections, you create more merit, do not sacrifice a big gift, which is generosity here, to keep a small precept. Okay. Maybe somebody can help me think of, you have a situation?
Maybe somebody, a layperson, requests a puja in a temple and plans to make a huge offering, but also knows that maybe the person will get famous in that monastery for being so generous and has a lot of greed and attachment to that. So maybe a certain form of lying is involved or something like that.
Yeah, but this is a situation where it's talking about you would give up the thing of morality in order to give a big gift. Yeah.
An example that comes to my mind is that a monastic is not supposed to handle money, but definitely it's favorable to take the money from the stimulus and use it to give to charities.
Yeah.
And so there's a bigger gift and to people that are really in need right now, even though breaking the precept of handling money.
Yeah. Okay, so that could be, I was thinking of something similar to that, but if you take the example of, we all received checks from Uncle Sam Okay, so even though we try not to handle money, and we have a precept not to handle money, many of the people here sent money to different charities. Okay, so in that respect, we gave up an action of small morality in order to do an action of a big action of generosity for people who needed it. Okay, so these kind of situations happen, but we also have to be careful not to rationalize. Okay, and the big example I will tell you with the next verse, but I think first we should stop and see if there's questions. No? Okay, then I'll go on and give this example. So verse 84, when this is well understood, meaning not you don't sacrifice a big gift to keep, for a small act of morality. When you understand that well, I should always strive for the welfare of others. And in the previous verse, it spoke quite obviously. Principally, I should consider what will be of the most benefit to others. So that's the guiding line, not this other, doing things like that. Okay, so I should always strive for the welfare of others. The far-seeing, merciful ones, the Buddhists, have allowed a bodhisattva to do some actions that for others were forbidden. Okay, so the standard example of this is there is a story somewhere, I think it's in the Jataka tales, where in a previous life, the Buddha was the captain of a ship. And with 500 merchants, they were out on the seas looking for wish-fulfilling jewels. And the Buddha, who was the captain, saw with his clairvoyant powers that that there was one of the merchants who was going to kill all the other 499 merchants in order to take the wealth. That I don't know if they had found the wish-fulfilling jewel, but they had found a lot of other stuff. And so he was going to steal it all by killing the others. Okay? And the Buddha saw this, so the Buddha killed him, this deviant person, before he could kill the other 500 merchants. And it said that he created, incredible amount of merit doing this. So there's different takes on the meaning of that story. Some people say that the Buddha, the captain, didn't create any negativity by killing the renegade merchant. Other people say that the Buddha did create some negativity because it's a naturally negative action, but the power of his compassion was so strong that it kind of overcame it, whatever the negative result would have been of killing. Okay, so that's great when you're talking about bodhisattvas. Okay, when you're talking about bodhisattvas who have wisdom, who know other people's karma, who have no hatred in their own mind towards somebody else, that they would kill somebody who was going to kill others. So this would be like somebody thinking of killing Hitler before Hitler, went off and did his thing. Okay, so we take that example, which is meant for people with very high realizations, and we say, oh, I have compassion, so I can do that too. Okay, actually, our compassion is not compassion, really, if we check our mind. Our compassion is a cover-up for fear, hatred, resentment, something else. But we say, I'm going to do this negative action out of compassion because it's going to protect these other people. But actually our motivation is not compassion. Okay? So in verse 84, it's saying, yes, that, is that kind of permission the Buddha did give to the high-level bodhisattvas. So let's not run around criticizing everybody we see, because they may be a high-level bodhisattva that's doing something, that is very useful to benefit sentient beings. But on the other hand, let's not, rationalize, justify, make excuses for our own bad behavior, saying that, well, I really have compassion, when we're not bodhisattvas at all. Okay, is that clear? Yeah. Okay, so, in the previous verse, it was like, okay, if for the benefit of someone or benefit of all beings, you do a small negativity to accomplish something big, yeah, that's okay, because it's a small negativity and a big benefit. Okay, and it's a simple kind of action. The example of the ship captain, they're murdering somebody. This is a serious thing. It's not just a small one. And, that person has those kind of realizations, and they're willing to accept if is going to be a painful result, because it is a naturally negative action, they willingly accept to experience that painful result. Yeah, I asked Geshe Dadel about this kind of thing one time, and about people saying, well, I'm doing it for the benefit of others. That's the standard thing for sexual abuse in Buddhist circles. Well, it's going to benefit somebody, and, giving them high so this kind of thing. And so I asked Geshe-la, well, what about if somebody is, saying that that's why they did it? And Geshe-la, and I said, how do you tell the difference between somebody who's a bodhisattva and somebody who's charlatananda? And Geshe-la said, if it's a real bodhisattva, they would be willing to accept the results of their actions. So if there's, if there's negative karma created, because it's a naturally negative action, they will happily experience the result of that negative karma. Or if they will experience in this lifetime their reputation getting ruined, if they know for sure this is something beneficial for sentient beings in the long term, then they will happily accept their reputation getting ruined. So then you look when somebody does something, and are they willing to accept the painful karmic or immediate result from doing the action? Or are they rationalizing, justifying, making excuses, whatever, trying to be famous in one way or another? Okay. Because you see people citing this story, very frequently, and you really wonder about their motivation. So it's cautioning us, not to lie to ourselves and lie to others. Okay.